Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole. Circle round for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned. Circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tony Lorenzen, the minister at the Mattituck Unitarian Universalist Society and the Unitarian Universalist Church in Meriden, where, as UU congregations, we share common missions that involve providing a supportive community, encouraging spiritual growth, and working for social justice. We're incredibly grateful you are here to join us for this service this morning online. We will be here online for as long as we cannot meet together in the sanctuaries in person. And we are, again, glad you are with us here this morning. Being Unitarian Universalist congregations, we begin our services by lighting the symbol of our faith, which is the flaming chalice. And I invite you to share in these words you should see on your screen. We light this flame in memory of all the Black lives lost to police violence. We light this flame to banish the darkness of white supremacy culture. We light this flame to celebrate the rainbow of diversity, working, loving, and living on the side of love. May its light shine on us all. Believing that our being together during this time is what makes it holy, we now invite you to join in this morning's service.
Why do we celebrate LGBTQ Pride in June each year? The LGBTQ community celebrates the anniversary of a seminal event in our history when we decided not to accept the way we were treated, but to change our way of being. How did gay liberation start? On June 28, 1969, people were gathered at Stonewall Inn, a bar in New York City's Greenwich Village. This was not an unusual day until the police arrived to raid the bar. In 1969 and before, it was common for the police to harass gays in the vicinity of the bars we went to. It was common for the police to come into a gay bar and beat up the people there. The police recognized that these people were afraid of being named and getting any publicity, and they would not report any abuse. But on this night, something happened, and the people there had had enough. They decided not to take it anymore, and they fought back. A riot started that lasted all that night and sporadically broke out across the city for several days. A friend of mine who lived in Manhattan at the time talks about hearing a report on the radio on her way home from work and staying up all night listening to the radio to see what was going to happen. If you have a picture in your mind of a bar fight, let me add some detail. Some of the men were fighting in dresses, stockings, and high heels. Some of them were in what I call their show off your body wear. Some were wearing their work clothes, and some were in leather. And imagine trying to get a riot started without cell phones. They had to go find a phone and call one person at a time. Stonewall was not the only place where rioting happened. It is the one most remembered and has come to represent them all. It is interesting that police brutality started the change in our lives. As a result of the riot, people started organizing, and gay liberation was born. Groups formed around political agendas. There are gay Democrats and gay Republicans. There were people focused on getting gays to come out and be seen as individuals to the people who knew them. There were people focused on repealing state sodomy laws and people focused on same-sex marriage. There were people focused on family and having kids. There were lesbians in the forefront of women's liberation. There were lesbians in the National Organization for Women. Oh my! It was and is still a long road. Roadblocks have been taken down, only to lately reappear bigger than ever. Now more than ever, we need to support each other's issues and stand together with love.
I hate to tell you this, but we're going to the wrong goal.
No, I switched the goals, so this is my goal and your goal is hidden. Yes, I can, because I hid your goal in my goal, so when you score, I score.
Ha! I scored!
Fine, a goal for you and for me. The score is oogie to boogie.
But I already had an oogie.
No, but you lost the oogie when you ran into the invisible score changing sector.
What invisible score changer? I didn't see it.
You can't see it because it's invisible. Duh! I hit you with the Calvinball. 2 points and an X for me.
You don't get the X. You were in the slow motion zone.
I won't be for long. Because I just got a piece of speed correction candy. So there. Your fidgeting causes you to stumble into the pernicious poem place. You must recite a pernicious poem.
Okay, fine. Here it is. This is a poem. Please do what you're told. And here is a bucket of water, ice cold. Please take this water and dump it on me. Don't hesitate. Do it ASAP. I stole your flag. Step it, Wickeds, for me.
You can't steal the flag. You've got to capture it. So now you've got to sing the Very Sorry song as a penalty for stealing.
Here's a very sorry song.
Bum, bum, bum.
Won't you help and sing along?
Bum, bum, bum.
I blew it.
Sorry.
I knew it.
So sorry.
I'm very, very sorry I took your precious flag.
Just don't do it anymore, you scurvy scalawag.
What are you guys doing?
We're playing Calvinball.
Playing Calvinball.
Other kids' games are such a bore. They've got to have rules and they got to keep score. Calvinball is better by far. It's never the same, it's always bizarre. You don't need a team or a referee. You know that's great because it's played by me.
My all-time favorite comic strip is, as I'm going to suppose you have guessed by now, Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson. It's the ongoing adventures of a 6-year-old boy and his stuffed tiger, who, when no one else is around, appears as a real-life flesh-and-blood companion to Calvin. Calvin's imagination is expansive, to say the least. When adults are not around, his stuffed tiger Hobbes is real, and they both get into amazing hijinks, devising all kinds of curious games and explorations and shenanigans. A lot of them are running gags in the strip, and my favorite running gag in the strip is Calvinball, a game Calvin and Hobbes have invented, which has no other rules other than players must wear a mask and you make up the rest of the rules as you go along. Calvin and Hobbes explain it this way, as I believe we've seen in our skit today, that other kids' games are such a bore, they've got to have rules and they've got to keep score. Calvinball is better by far. It's never the same, it's always bizarre. You don't need a team or a referee, and you know it's great because it's played by me. It's exactly my kind of game. In the various comic strips through the years, we learned that Calvinball scores come as oogie to boogie or Q to 12. We see the players experience the pernicious poem place, where, yes, the player stuck there must recite a pernicious poem, and commit penalties for which they must sing the Very Sorry song. Calvinball is nonsensical, arbitrary, confusing, and a lot of fun. And I don't know about you, but I remember playing a lot of games very similar to it while I was growing up. As adults, there's something about a game with no standard rules that we don't like. As human beings, we like order and we see patterns in things. With too many rules, we're confined, and with too few rules, we feel we're in a place of chaos. COVID-19 has been mismanaged to a criminal degree by our administration. Black lives continue not to matter in too many ways, especially in terms of police violence and discrimination. There's systemic racism, the continuation of white supremacy culture. Policy and law are focused on maintaining a status quo that devalues black lives. The country is feeling pretty chaotic right now. We're in the middle of a struggle over our American game. Will the rules hold? Will the rules apply to all players? Will the rules change? Will the rules remain, but will some players legally, as well as in practice, be above the rules? Calvinball is an infinite game. Politics, however sane or crazy, is a finite game. Philosopher James P. Carse, in his book on game theory, Finite and Infinite Games, writes, there are two types of games. One may be called finite and the other infinite. Carse says that finite games are played to win, and the object is victory. Infinite games are played for the joy of playing, and the aim is to continue to play. The rules of a finite game cannot change, but the rules of an infinite game must change. Carr says the goal of finite players is to be able to not be surprised. Surprise causes finite play to end. It is the reason for infinite play to continue. And we seem to be drowning in a political culture of surprise. Over the last few years, usual behavior we expect from our national leaders has been cast aside in favor of victory and power at any cost, including the stoking of hatred and division, much of it along racial lines. White supremacy culture hates surprise and change. The finite games are zero-sum contests. For me to win, you must lose. And being a loser is one of the worst insults imaginable in our culture. Finite games are contests for control and power, contests of will and domination, victory at all costs. Infinite games are the exact opposite. The only way there is a winner is if we all win, and the only way there is a loser is if we all lose. They are activities of exploration and creativity. Infinite games are usually fun. Most of the conflict in our society, in our workplaces, in our politics, our churches, our schools, is conflict between those who are playing a finite game and those who are playing an infinite game. And I believe infinite games can only be played by those who know some joy. If joy is conspicuously lacking, it's not an infinite game. And our culture and politics at this point can seem pretty joyless most of the time. It's important to recognize that joy, however, is not just happiness, but a quality of the soul. Happiness is an emotion, but joy is a state of heart, an inner orientation. Joy amplifies happiness, certainly, but joy can also be present amid sadness and pain and loss. The opposite of joy isn't sadness, it's emptiness, isolation, disconnection, qualities that are being amplified in this time of COVID and the appropriate safety measures we're taking to combat it. Joy is a fullness of heart that experiences deep connection to the sacred and the holy. Joy is wonder and amazement at the miracle of existence. Joy is love and being loved. Joy is seeing and being seen. When we experience joy, It is usually accompanied by pleasure, happiness, and excitement, elation even. For this is when we most easily recognize it. Joy is playful and fun. However, it is when joy breaks through as a small light in darkness that perhaps it teaches us its most important lessons. One of the best places to see this in action is Pride celebrations. Pride shows us that joy is the ultimate weapon against oppression. That spirit of play and fun and reveling and being alive is something you cannot defeat. You can set it back, but you cannot beat it. And we are seeing that happen today, daily, in the Black Lives Matter protests around the nation. We are seeing people come together out of frustration, but the hope that is being inspired by them and among them as we go out there and demand change is a joy of itself. It is an orientation towards that place where we want to be, that is more light and more bearable and more the way things should be. Calvinball is an infinite game. Calvin's dilemmas in the comic strip arise because, like most kids, he's creative and imaginative. He continuously runs into the finite games that school can play and that babysitters and parents have to play, and the rest of the finite rules of the world. Transmogrifiers, deranged mutant killer monster snow goons, Calvinball, all part of the infinite game. The current climate in our country requires creativity, cooperation, imaginative ingenuity. It requires infinite game players. The finite games of politics and economics, law and government need Calvinballers who dare to create a new way to play. A way that is interdependent instead of independent. That practices power over, or power with rather, instead of power over. That realizes we are all in this together. That we all win or we all lose together. The finite game players will see the infinite game players as weak losers, even crazy people. But the infinite players are more like the dancers who were thought to be crazy by everyone who could not hear the music they were dancing to. The role of faith communities, creativity, education, and play is to reveal to us the infinite game. Clergy, teachers, artists, activists, organizers, reformers are Calvinball coaches. Their job is to teach us how to play the infinite game, to help people remember they already know how to play, that truth and justice and fairness are supposed to be the default setting, that hope and love and joy are the marks of our best players, not power and control and violence. The game skills of infinite players are kindness, compassion, courage, the greatest weapons against the encroachment and unjust rules of the finite games. Calvinball coaches don't just teach people to dance, but how to hear the music. Once people hear the music, they will remember they already know how to dance. The dance of inclusion and respect and peace and love and joy. It's downright playful. And so we march in pride, and so we march with Black Lives Matter, pleading, imploring, demanding that the world hear the infinite music. Karst writes that there are many finite games, but only one infinite game. I invite you all to play it. Play it joyfully. Play it seriously. Play it for fun. We need you on the team. The Pride team, the Black Lives Matter team, the Unitarian Universalist team, the human team. As all good coaches would say, if they were coaching Calvinball, Get out there, love your opponents, and continue the play. Spirit of life. We hold in our hearts this week Sandy's cousin Dave, who passed away last week. And we hold in our hearts all those in our community who are struggling with depression and anxiety during this difficult time. We give thanks for the gay and lesbian and bisexual and transgender and queer leaders who guided us through Stonewall and the AIDS crisis and marriage equality, and guide us still through the struggle to maintain a rainbow of equality. We give thanks for Black leaders who guided us through resisting Jim Crow and the civil rights movement, and naming and resisting Jim Crow in its new guise of incarceration, and who are now guiding us through a time of resistance and struggle until Black lives do matter. We join our hearts this morning in a spirit of affirmation and aspiration. It is difficult to remember play and to have fun these days, as the morally bankrupt take from the poor to give to the rich. The scared beg us to share their fears and hatreds of people of color and immigrants and Muslim and queer people. Our president threatens violence and the use of military force against our own citizens who dare to demand they be treated with inherent dignity and worth. We are confronted with the harsh realities and legacies of patriarchy evidenced in sexual harassment, abuse, and misconduct. As the summer days grow longer, may we grow bolder in our faith and in our determination to follow our leaders of color, and may the light of our faith symbolized in our chalice grow stronger as the days lengthen. The summer season reminds us that light indeed shines much stronger than darkness, and it shines on much beauty in this world. The world is full of people who will overwhelm us with their kindness and inspire us with their courage and encourage us with their determination. This was the example set for us by the brave souls of Stonewall and is made manifest today by the brave souls organizing and leading Black Lives Matter and Moral Monday here in Connecticut. May this season of pride and these days of resistance and protest remind us to give everything we can to the struggle for justice and everything we can to the spirit that calls us to play and silliness and fun and joy, so that we may refuel our spirits for the work of making the world we dream about a reality. There really are no other words for this other than we need those of you who can to give as generously as possible. We still have the costs associated with producing this service and other programming. We are helping our immigrant neighbors with food and cards to go shopping at the supermarkets. And we are helping our own members with rent and utilities during this difficult time. Please, as you are generous people, now be as generous as you possibly can. Thank you.
Hi, this is Angie. I'm here at the Capitol with Pamela and John Selders on the 6th day of the Fast for Justice.
Hey family, we're here. We called the fast 6 days ago. This Fast for Justice that Angie mentioned, asking for the state legislature, and the governor call for special session with the first order of business being policing. In these times when there's social and civil unrest everywhere, and including here in Connecticut, it's time to deal with the remnants of our original pandemic, some people have said. And so we are here, day 6, and we will be here until the legislature is called back into session, or at least a date is announced about that session being called. Here's what we need you to do. We need you to be in touch with your state legislative group, your state senator, your state representative. Call them, email them, send them a text, get on Facebook, however you do, be in touch with them and ask them to open session now and act on policing. That is your particular ask. Those of you who've been showing up at Black Lives Matter rallies and events across the state, this is something concrete that you can do that will change the course of history for us here. Don't be caught on the wrong side of history, okay? All right, peace.
Being the end of our service, we extinguish our chalice. But as always, I encourage you to keep that flame in your heart and to shine its light into all the dark places in the world until love is love and Black lives matter and the world we dream about is a reality. Go in peace, holy ones.